Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's episode of Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening, folks. I am the maestro, Jeremy Karp, and don't worry, I will not be hosting tonight by myself. First off, I just want to say we love you, Hollywood James Knox. Be well. You know, we're always praying for you, as every week we do. Babs, we're also thinking of you this evening. I know you came down under the weather a bit. You were going to be here, but the show always goes on. And ladies and gentlemen, what better way to have the show keep on going than to have very own published author and sports historian himself, the Burt Sugar of St. Louis, the man himself, Parker Bena, everybody.
Hey,
How
Jeremy.
you doing, Parker?
I'm doing good, Jeremy. It's good to be hosting here with you tonight.
Well, it's great having you. So we got quite a bit to talk about, but first I want to know, how have you been lately?
I'm doing just fine.
Wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, we're going to kick off tonight by talking about spring training. We're going to cover what the Cardinals, spring training's back. We're back with baseball. We're going to talk about what's the latest happenings with the Cardinals and the Royals. Some of the top headlines going on there. Later, we're going to talk about yet another trade of a Blues longtime staple, that being Ivan Barbashev from the St. Louis Blues being traded. I mean, this just comes off the heels of Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko being traded. And now, with that, only 6 remaining members of the Stanley Cup team from 2019 are still on the Blues roster, which is absolutely a mind-blowing statistic to think about. And then happy early birthday to my dad. He's got his birthday's in a couple days, and he and mother are having a great time down in Florida. So, I think they're going to try to catch one of the spring training games before they head back. But right now they are living it up near Fort Lauderdale. So
I know the Cards were off today, but
right.
I think they were. I don't know if they play the Astros home or away tomorrow. I know they
we can easily find that out right about now.
All right.
Oh, hang on. Let's see. Tomorrow, the Cardinals will be playing home. It's a home game versus
it's in Jupiter.
The Astros at 12:05. Yeah, so it's in Jupiter. But yes, and we also are going to be talking about a little bit over the XFL, and I'm going to be going over the Good Doctors
the
power rankings. Yep, the power rankings that you can check out on interstate70sports.media every week. The Good Doctor himself, JM, has his weekly rankings of the XFL teams, and believe it or not, the Battlehawks have moved up, but we'll delve into that a little later. First, we also want to say, folks, comment, like, subscribe, share, really get the engagement going. We love hearing from those tuning in. If you have a question for one of us, we'll definitely do our best to get it on the air and answer it. So, yeah. So with that, Parker, let's kick it off by talking about spring training. And I think the first thing that definitely needs to be talked about is the arrival and the long-awaited debut of Jordan Walker. And in his first start on Sunday, it just took 3 innings, and he hit a massive 430-foot 3-run home run.
He took Johnny Cueto deep.
Johnny Cueto deep. And it's funny, a good friend of mine called Johnny Cueto 430 years old, as Jordan Walker hit it 430 feet. And on top of
Willie Mays taking Warren Spahn deep in for his first home run.
Exactly.
Warren Spahn said for the first 60 feet, that was one hell of a pitch.
Yes. And Eddie, thank you so much for tuning in. Eddie Jameson, a longtime listener. Always love having you on. So Walker is ranked as the number 4 prospect in all of baseball right now. And of course, there's no doubt he's going to make the team. It seems like it's indicative that he is going to get a starting spot in the outfield. Of course, they are going to still figure that out. And Eddie, we're doing pretty good. Hope you're doing as well,
We're
my
doing
friend.
fine, Eddie.
Parker, what do you think as far as Jordan Walker's performance so far in spring training?
I think he's the real deal. I really do. I would like him to have a little time at AAA, but I'll tell you what, if he's ready now, he's ready now.
The thing of it is when you look at the Cardinals have an interesting situation. And I said this last week with Babs. The Cardinals have a situation where they have so many outfielders and guys that can rotate into the outfield. I mean, you got Lars Nootbaar, you got Dylan Carlson, you got Tyler O'Neill, you got Jordan Walker, and then you got guys like Yepez and Brendan Donovan.
Juan Yepez too.
Yeah, Yepez and Donovan who can rotate and be in the outfield as well. You already know they're gonna probably my predicted outfield for the Cardinals come opening day is going to be Walker, Tyler O'Neill, and Lars Nootbaar. I feel that's a solid enough one. There's a lot of chips on the table for Tyler O'Neill. The team, I feel like, really wants O'Neill to have a bounce back year. And Eddie puts on that he's hoped Brendan Donovan keeps up his spring training numbers. I think Brendan Donovan's going to find himself in a very good position with the Cardinals. Yes. I think he's a valuable asset for the team.
I think he's the starting second baseman. I agree with Eddie.
Well, this is the interesting thing. And this was another thing we talked about last week. And I guess before we continue to the outfield situation, Parker, I want your thoughts on this. What do you feel in regards to the infield? The biggest question for everybody is who's going to be at second, who's going to be at short. Obviously Edman's one of them, but do you put Edman at second or do you put Edman at short?
I put Donovan.
You're going to put Edman at
I put Donovan at second and Edman at short.
And what is your thought process behind that? It's interesting take on the matter, definitely.
Because I like Donovan's glove. He is a Gold Glover. He was the first ever recipient of the utility Gold Glove. I like his glove and I like his bat.
Yeah,
I like he's him playing more of an everyday role with the team. And I've got my son has a German girlfriend, and she and her family are Brendan Donovan fans.
They're Brendan Donovan fans. There you go.
Yeah,
and look at that.
Grew up near Würzburg, Germany, where Brendan Donovan is from.
Well, you got yourself a fan in Eddie right here. He shares the same sentiments as well as you do. It's always nice having a support on your side. Definitely. Yeah, the thing of it is, I think Tommy and the infield couldn't be a better situation for the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going into this season with not only one of the best potential lineups, but one of the best potential fields, because you have Contreras at catcher, you have Arenado and Goldschmidt, and you have Tommy Edman one way or another. And then you got guys like Donovan, you got guys like Nolan Gorman. And then once again, we have the outfield situation where, once again, like you said, Brendan Donovan became the first ever recipient of the utility Gold Glove, which, it showcases about the evolution of how baseball is, and how having guys that can still play multiple positions is such a crucial need. And
that's another thing I was just going to say. I mean, I hate to say this, and it's a real shame because the guy was an all-star 4 years ago. In 2019.
I know who you're going with. Mm-hmm.
I mean, where is he? He does not figure into the equation at all.
And here's something. Eddie says how Brandon Donovan's also a down-to-earth guy, somebody that
yeah, he is.
He's a fan favorite, somebody that really reflects well upon the organization. You're absolutely right, though, Parker, in regards to Paul DeJong. Look, It's crazy to think that just a few years ago, DeYoung was an all-star.
And he
And
turned a double play in that very game.
yeah, turned a double play in that very game. He was having a fantastic season. Injuries hurt. He just hit a slump that he's not been able to get out of yet.
Well, people have scoffed at me for this, but I attribute that slump to the fact that he got hit by a pitch in the ribs in May of 2021. And I think
that's not easy to come back from.
No, it's not. I think somehow that threw him off his rhythm and he hasn't been able to get back on.
I can totally see that being a situation as well. Now, when you look at a guy like Paul DeYoung, we've had a lot of people talk to us in regards to possibly having him traded to another team. This is the problem with that. First off, and Eddie's saying now, and I'm glad Eddie brought this up. Paul DeYoung is trade bait probably with Mr. Gorman. This is the thing I have. DeYoung is not trade bait by himself. He has no true value in my opinion.
No,
the guy right now he's 29 years old and he'll be 30 in August. He's hitting a career 233. And obviously he batted 130 over the course of 24 games to start the season. Like, he has not gotten any better with the Cardinals over time. And I hate to say it, but, fans that go to these games know what to expect when DeYoung's up to bat. And it's not something, positive. So, here we go. What do the Cardinals do, Parker, with Paul DeYoung now?
If they trade him, if they're able to trade him, they're going to have to package him with somebody else.
And see, that brings up the next question. Who would they want to get? See, I don't think Gorman is going to be traded. I would assume Carlson will get traded, in my opinion, before Gorman because
unfortunate but true. I think you're right.
And part of it is because of Donovan. Because if you have a solid enough guy like Donovan who can play infield and outfield, you're not as worried about somebody like Carlson if he's not able to play up to par. And then once again, we go back to the Juan Yepes situation. Yepes can play outfield. He's played it very well in his appearances last season. But he can also play, first or, if Goldschmidt's sitting for the game or something, the Cardinals have, and then of course, you do have the DH situation. As we transition more from the fielding aspect of the team to the batting aspect, who do you see as do you think that, say, Donovan doesn't make the roster as one of the starting fielders, do you see him still being the starting DH for the Cardinals?
No, I think Yeppe will get most of the reps at DH.
You think Yepes will get the starts? Will get the reps at DH?
Yeah, but
that's a tough call for me.
I do see Donovan as the starting second baseman. Like I said, you can't keep that.
That's a tough one. That is a very tough one.
What, there is, in my opinion, there is a wild card.
Okay.
And this is being brought on because a lot of our guys are going to be leaving for the WBC next week. Lucan Baker. I saw him the other day. It was Sunday. He hit a monster shot.
Okay.
He can rake.
You hear a little bit about him, but he's definitely an under-the-radar prospect, and I think a lot of it is because he's been overshadowed by the guys that are now getting to leave for the WBC. We talked about, and we'll talk about this soon when we bring up the Royals, about their WBC representation, but the Cardinals have a fair share of guys going to the WBC as well.
Yeah. Palante is going to be pitching for Italy. who, by the way, is managed by Mike Piazza.
That is actually pretty interesting. We got a first question. Here's one for you, Parker. So, do you think they will show Cardinals baseball on Bally Sports? Do you think, even given everything that's going on, do you think Cardinals baseball will still be on Bally Sports come start of the season?
Yes.
You think it will?
Yes, I do.
I think it's
they're showing it right now. They're showing it right now on Bally Sports.
Right, because they haven't gone through the full process of filing of the bankruptcy and everything. Now, later on, say in the middle of the season, it can change to where something else might come up. My biggest concern, and not everybody feels this way, but I do. My biggest concern is that we'll have to download a whole new streaming service to get these exclusive games,
Yes.
that look, I know cable's not the most popular thing.
Not anymore.
But you and even myself grew up watching Cardinals games on a channel that not only you could get, either KPLR or eventually, Fox, even Channel 5 would show games with Jay Randolph on the call. I mean, and then once certain streaming services came out, first off, the Bally Sports app is perhaps one of the worst apps in the history of apps. It absolutely does not work at all. That's why for me, if I'm out, and I'm not, because YouTube TV doesn't carry Bally Sports, unfortunately, and that's the streaming service I primarily have. I listen to KMOX, kind of like I listen to 101 for the Blues.
Kind of worst comes to worst, we'll be listening to 162 games on the radio.
Right. And honestly, though, I mean, listening to Horton and John Rooney isn't
exactly nothing wrong with either of those guys.
Yep, nothing wrong with either of them. But to get back to the whole situation in regards to the Cardinals and how they're looking at spring training, who is one player that's definitely stood out to you the most heading into?
Like I said, Luken Baker.
Luken Baker's the number one guy for you?
He's stood out, yeah. I mean, he's, like you said, he's an under the radar prospect, so there's no pressure on him.
Yeah, because he's definitely somebody that I feel is going to be on the 40-man regardless. Even if he's not on the 25-man, he'll be on there.
He's a big boy too.
Yeah. And first, we got to say hello to our favorite heel referee himself, Christopher Miles. God love him. Folks, every Sunday, be sure to tune in at 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern for the Issues with Wrestling with Christopher Miles. It's always a fantastic show. It's one of the top 100 wrestling podcasts out there, according to Apple Podcasts. So definitely worth. And as always, I love it. He's never thrilled with me calling him that, which is what makes it more fun. Okay, so Eddie does. Speaking of broadcasting and everything, Eddie does have another question for you, Parker, and I'll chime in after. But what is your thoughts on Chip Carey so far as the broadcaster?
I like him. He's got a lot of polish. I mean, obviously, sports broadcasting is in his blood. He's third generation, and he has twin sons that are coming up. But
yeah,
he's been around the broadcast booth since he was a kid. So I think he's learned a few tricks of the trade. And I really like him, but unfortunately, with the Bally Sports situation, I don't know where we're going to get to see him.
Yeah, and as I'm giving my thoughts on the topic, Christopher Miles does want to say that T-shirts on ProWrestlingTees.com/St. Louis favorite zebra. You get this deal. They are 20% off this week. So definitely, folks, be sure to check that out. He's got a special deal. And like I said, every Sunday, Eddie's really liking you, Parker. So look at that.
I
Now,
see
with
that. I see
with
that.
that said, I like Chip Carey as well. I know a lot of people wanted a younger guy, but at the same time, and I don't know if it's because they wanted somebody that could stick around for the long haul, but to have a member of the Carey family
He's younger
back,
than I am.
yeah, I was gonna,
He's
I
younger
was
than
gonna
I am.
say,
He's 57.
well,
I'm 60.
yeah, I was gonna say, let's not
He's not
act like Chip
old.
Carey's. Yeah, we're not gonna act like he's 68 years old. Over here. 75. He just had a birthday. He just turned 58. Actually,
Yep.
on the 27th. So yeah,
Yeah, same day my mom turned 89.
yeah. So there you go. I think he's been entertaining to listen to. Just great to have on. Brings a lot of experience, been
Yes,
part of
that's what I
Major League.
was saying. That's what I was saying. He brings a lot of experience because
I
he's
mean,
third
because
generation.
I was going to say, well, that, and he's been calling Braves games since about '06,
Mhm.
and he called playoff games on TBS. I mean, he had a big partnership with
He was
TBS.
with the Orlando Magic for a long time too.
And he was with the Orlando Magic. So, I think it's a welcome addition for the Cardinals, because, when you replace Danny Mac, who's a very experienced announcer in and of himself, to have somebody that still fills that role nicely, is something that's very refreshing to see. Speaking of experience, as we reached the 22-minute mark here on Roundabout Sports, we're going to transition from the Cardinals, actually, to the Kansas City Royals. Now, this is the interesting thing. So last year, we're going to talk about Zach Greinke because he is the Adam Wainwright of the Royals. Or you could even say Adam Wainwright's the Zach Greinke of the Cardinals. Either way you want to go about it. I know Greinke's had a couple long stints with other teams, but believe this, Parker, Zach Greinke is at 30. He's 39 years old, and I know he's played for more teams than Wainwright. He played for the Brewers, the Angels, the Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Astros, but let's take this into account. Zach Greinke is playing his 20th MLB season.
And he's back where he started.
Yeah, he's back where he started. He played from 04 to 2010 with the Royals, and then he had all those other stints in between with teams I just mentioned, and then he's been back since last year. And he finished with a 3.68 ERA last year, which was respectable enough, but it wasn't up to par with where he wanted to be. And he's made that clear. I think one thing, though, and I definitely know that you always have strong opinions regarding changes in baseball, the banning of the shift. So people may not realize how much that affects pitchers as well as fielders.
Mm-hmm.
So Greinke was quoted by Aaron Rodgers, beat reporter for the Royals for MLB.com, about how not striking guys out, it's a little bit tougher to get
He's
guys
their
out.
John Denton, the guy you just mentioned. He's their John Denton. John Denton is our guy.
Right. Felt like I had to make a couple of changes, and hopefully they work out. So there's a more traditional defensive alignment to maintain how the ball's put when it's put in play. What are your thoughts on the banning of the shift and how it'll affect pitchers and defenders alike in baseball this season and beyond?
Well, I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see higher averages. I really do. You got to think about the shift is the thing that killed Matt Carpenter's career, pretty much, or at least killed his career in St. Louis.
Yeah. One quick thing, Eddie. I know Eddie's getting ready to watch the Mizzou basketball game, and we'll try to keep folks posted as this game's going on. I know when this gets uploaded so people can listen to it in the future, it's going to sound weird, but we'll try to keep you all posted on how the game's going. But yeah, it's interesting when I think about how the shift is going to be playing. For example, with the shift on, batters hit 200 against Greinke's changeup. With the standard alignment, they hit 385. That's quite the big
that's
change.
I was just going to say that's quite a difference.
And I know a lot of pitchers aren't happy about it. I know a lot of pitchers, they already have enough problems dealing with the pitch clock. Yeah, let alone having to deal with anything else.
I mean, I've seen that pitch clock in action a few times when I watched some spring training games. It seems to be working. There doesn't seem to be a real issue yet.
Right. Keyword is yet. Don't seem to have a real issue with the situation. And I think one thing about Zach Greinke and his changeup is the fact that he puts the ball. He's definitely a more putting the ball in play type of pitcher.
I mean, he's a ground ball.
He's a ground ball pitcher, and he's nearing 3,000 strikeouts. Let's not act like he isn't a strikeout guy, but he is also a control pitcher. So he puts the ball in play more to trust his infield, or I guess sometimes outfield, just in case. But when the shift is out of the equation, you have to take on a different strategy.
Right.
So
now you've got the pitch clock in the equation, so you're going to still need to take on yet another different strategy. You got to work fast now.
Right. And it's interesting because of active pitchers right now, there's two pitchers that are over 3,000 strikeouts.
Yeah, Scherzer's one of them.
Scherzer, and then literally just ahead of Scherzer is Verlander. And I mean, as of the start of this season, 5 strikeouts ahead.
Scherzer was ahead.
Nope, Verlander has 3,198, and Scherzer has 3,193. Greinke has 2,882. Kershaw has 2,807. And Wainwright has 147.
I think Waino would be in that near 3,000 group if he hadn't lost 2 seasons to Tommy John surgery.
I was going to say injuries definitely affected him. And I love what Ann Rodgers wrote when she said, if there's one guarantee as Greinke begins his 20th season, it's that it'll be different than the previous 19 years, but that no one is better equipped to handle that than Zach Greinke. What do you feel that his leadership, kind of like how Wainwright's is with the Cardinals, I mean, his leadership is going to become invaluable for guys like Brady Singer and especially on the Royals. Like when you take a look, some of the pitchers they got, of course now Chapman's injured, but you got Daniel Lynch, you got Brady Singer, Brad Keller. I mean, some of these guys definitely, they're putting a lot of faith in this young group of guys.
Well, they've got some good young pitching, just the same as we do.
The problem is last year the Royals were arguably one of the worst teams in the majors when it came to ERA. It was over 4 when it came to average, home runs. I mean, just across the board. And I personally feel Cal Eldred is responsible for a lot of it. I think former manager Mike Matheny is responsible for part of that. They're both gone from the organization. I also think, though, this year the Royals have a good chance to make some underrated noise because they got a very young yet very talented lineup. We talk about
Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah, they got Bobby Witt Jr. That's one notable person, but you got
Mascantino.
Yep, you got Salvador Perez, you got MJ Melendez, Hunter Dozier, Nicky Lopez, Vinny Pasquantino, Um, Nate Eaton, Drew Waters. There's so many guys that really.
Melendez and Lopez are also going to the World Baseball Classic.
Yes, and Melendez is a guy that can play multiple positions as well, which is nice, which is a welcome sight to see. And it benefits because Salvador Perez is only 32 years old, but the Royals have been able to take care of him enough to where they don't have to push him past any limits. It's always better to have two really good catchers on your team instead of one.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think we kind of have that with Contreras and Kisner. Kisner is a good defensive catcher. He's not maybe he's not so hot behind at bat, but he's still got a good.
Yeah, but I think the biggest problem the Cardinals had, and they had this, and I will continue to say this. I mean, it doesn't matter now because Molina's retired and they got Contreras, so really it's a moot point at this point. But up until they got Contreras, the Cardinals never had a true replacement for Molina that they dedicated themselves to. The longest one they stuck with was Tony Cruz, but you still got Ivan Herrera.
Yeah.
But he's not ready really. He's
also
good.
playing in the World Baseball Classic for Panama.
There you go. Kisner, who look, I'll be patient enough with him. I think he does have some good defensive qualities, but yes, he's very sorely lacking at the plate. Has a lot he has to work on. And and then they've tried the veterans to try to back up Molina.
They had Matt Wieters for a bit.
They had Matt Wieters, So we just take a look at the Cardinals as a whole, and I just look at the situation, and like I said, it doesn't matter now because obviously they got a good replacement in who else but Wilson Contreras. But they had Carson Kelly, Francisco Pena, Steve Barron, and look where they're all at.
Mm-hmm.
So,
if we kept Carson Kelly, we wouldn't have Goldie right now.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Everything the stars aligned, and don't trust me. I would much rather have Goldschmidt than Carson Kelly. Yeah. Just like I'd rather have Arenado than Austin Gomber. It's the way it is. And sometimes I'm still amazed that the Cardinals have Goldschmidt and Arenado when at one point they had Gomber and Carson Kelly. And it's not knocking them as players. It's just mind-blowing because Goldschmidt and Arenado are arguably future Hall of Famers. So,
yeah, absolutely.
At least, so, yeah.
I mean, I think Nato could get in on his glove alone if he continues the way he's going.
I mean, he's one of the best defensive third basemen of all time. And I think it's weird because he's considered a much better fielder than a hitter, and yet it's his hitting that gets more of the attention. And he's only 31 years old. Like, he's already a 10-time Gold Glove Award winner, and he's 31.
I think he's at or approaching 300 home runs.
Well, he's at 299. He's at 299. He's at 1,500 hits. He has a career batting average of 289. He's almost at 1,000 RBIs. 7-time All-Star. He's a Platinum Gold Glove Award winner 6 times, 5-time Silver Slugger. He's the full package.
Yeah, he is. I mean, for a lot of people, that's a career.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, he has more Gold Gloves than Scott Rowland, and Scott Rowland's going in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And, and Scott Rowland, once again, one of the...
All those numbers you just mentioned, he's putting those up over half a career, pretty much.
Exactly, because, Scott Rowland is considered one of the best defensive third baseman all time, but he also hit 316 home runs, batted 281, over 2,000 hits. So Arenado's on a pace to surpass Rowland in every category of the big numbers. So, with that, the Cardinals are looking great, and the Royals have their own set of aspects to look forward to.
Yeah, a
And it's
lot of
just
young kids with bright futures.
young kids with bright futures, and that's what I love most about spring training is you get to see who the future of the franchises are and who are the guys that, whether it be in 1 year or 2 years or even more, you'll get to see them hopefully and be like, I remember when they were just in spring training.
Yeah.
With that, folks, thank you so much for tuning in as we are at the 36-minute mark here on Roundabout Sports. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Karp. We have our very own lovely sports historian himself, Parker. And folks, be sure to subscribe, like, comment. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, on Anchor. We're on so many more places. Just look us up at Roundabout Sports. With that, we're going to transition now to the St. Louis Blues, the mess known as the St. Louis Blues.
Oh, boy.
There's something I want to pull up and I want to give credit to believe it or not, from St. Louis Blues memes that did the effort to put this graphic together. And when I saw this, it really put things in perspective. So over the past 3 weeks, Vladimir Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, and Ivan Barbashev have been traded from the Blues. Now, with that, I want to bring up the graphic. This is
there it is.
Is the 2019 Stanley Cup champions. That's the Blues team.
Wow.
You look at now if they're marked off in red, that means they're not on the team anymore.
Right.
This was 2019, Parker. It is 2023. It's barely into 2023. And there's only 6 players left. And keep in mind, Sammy just came back to the Blues in the Tarasenko trade. And Parayko is rumored to be on the chopping block to being traded away. And most likely Schen's going to be the next captain of the Blues. I would be hard-pressed to see anybody else. But I just look at this team and I look at the team now and I look at this team. Parker, what happened?
I guess the expectations were too high. When you win a Stanley Cup, you're expected to. Not everybody can be the Montreal Canadiens or the New York Islanders. I grew up in the New York area. I used to watch the Islanders. Some people thought they'd never lose another. They won 4 Stanley Cups in a row until that string got broken by Edmonton in 1984. But you're not going to see the dynasties in hockey anymore. I don't think you're really going to see the dynasties much in any sport.
I feel like the Blues, it would be hard for them to be maintained as a dynasty.
Yes.
That didn't seem like the team that was a dynasty waiting to happen. But it was one of the greatest underdog stories.
Yes, and everybody loved it.
Oh, it was fantastic. And I'm not just saying it because I'm a Blues fan, because I'm saying it as a sports fan that you love seeing the underdogs.
Yeah, that's same here.
But, I look at, you want to talk about dynasties that are over, look at the Chicago Blackhawks, especially now that Patrick Kane, as of March 1st, is no longer on the Chicago Blackhawks. Mm-hmm. He's a New York Ranger, and, I remember being in Chicago in 2016 and 2017 and whatnot, and just the crowds going nuts because of just how fantastic and amazing the team was. They were always a perennial contender. Now look at them.
Now, what about the Avalanche? Do you think they're a dynasty waiting to happen? They've won a few Stanley Cups in recent memory.
If the Avalanche, it's interesting because I agree with what you said earlier. You're not going to find a team winning 4 Stanley Cups in a row like you used to. You're not going to find, because I feel like it's something more difficult in hockey than it is in football. I don't know what it is, but in hockey, and I think a lot of it actually does have to do with the finances, the financial aspect, and contracts and everything. Um, but I look at the Blues roster. I mean,
I think hockey is also a much more physical game.
yeah, and
much more physically demanding.
right. And yet at the same time, you see guys in hockey last a lot longer. How? I don't know, but um I I don't know. I look at the Blues team this year. They're building for the future.
Yes.
They have 3 first round picks for the next draft.
Wow.
Which is insane to think about. They got multiple fourths and thirds over the next 2 years. They got other second round picks. It's not like they've been fleeced on these trades. It's not like the Blues have gotten screwed over. But what sucks is they're trading away fan favorites. And at the end of the day, that's what hurts ticket values. That's what hurts short-term business and short-term success. When you trade away the fan favorites that are doing something, a lot of people at this rate are going from who's next to who's going to be last.
Now, are the Blues out of it?
They are essentially out of it. I don't believe mathematically eliminated is the way to put it yet. They are, to me, basically out of it.
Okay.
So and
it's going to be wait till next year.
It's basically to that point, in my opinion. And it doesn't help when you're up 2 goals to nothing and losing overtime game after game. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help when you go back and forth. The Blues.
Yeah, I know they lost to the Kraken the other night.
They've recently lost to the Kraken, the Penguins. Both games they should have won. And I'm defending Coach Berube more than most people probably are. Because it's hard to win. It's hard to win with this roster. But this roster isn't meant to win. And I know that sounds incredibly cruel and or crazy, but the Blues team that's going out on that ice every game is not meant to be in the playoffs right now. It's meant to see what the future is going to look like. It's meant to be a placeholder for what's in store.
I was just going to say the same thing. They're just keeping the seat. They're just keeping the seat warm for the young guys.
Short team, exactly. Short-term struggles for long-term success. That's what the Blues are going for. And it's painful. It's extremely painful because the Blues have only missed the playoffs 9 times in their entire history, which is crazy for a team that's only won 1 cup. But yes, in the entire history of the St. Louis Blues, going back to 1967, they have only missed the playoffs 9 times. The problem was never the Blues making the playoffs. The problem was just getting far in the playoffs. After 1970, they couldn't even get back to the Cup until 2019. They got to the Western Conference Finals, and they'd get swept. They'd get to the semifinals, and they'd lose maybe in 6 games or something. Mm-hmm. It was always, or in the first round, the amount of first-round exits the Blues had. But getting there was never the problem. It was just getting over that final hump. So now we look at the team, and oh my gosh, it's rough to watch. It's rough to listen to. It hurts. And this is, and I'm having the I Bleed Blue shirt on tonight.
Yeah, I got a St. Louis Cardinal sweatshirt on here.
See? So we just look at the Cardinals. We look at the Blues, and it's just, and this was the good doctor, JM was saying this last week, just got to get through it. He said it's going to be JM's year. It's going to be worse probably next year.
Yep.
But then maybe in a year after that, they'll start getting better. These next 2 drafts, if the Blues nail these next 2 drafts, this is one of those drafts that you want to have 3 first-rounders. There's a lot of top prospects coming out that we'll discuss in future time.
Now,
especially.
where are those picks? What number picks are those 3 first round?
So right now, especially given the right. Well, shoot, there are so many trades that have been made that we don't know where the exact ones are at. It also depends on conditions regarding the players.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that also takes into account when it comes to the NHL. Because it's a lottery format, it's not just a straightforward thing like in
So
other
they're doing the
leagues.
same damn thing the NBA has done.
Pretty much. But once again,
that's how the Knicks got Patrick Ewing in 1985 was the lottery.
Exactly. So yeah. And like I said, it's not going to be much better. I'm holding out hope they nail this draft. Because if they do, look, you get 3 first-round picks. You get even 2 of those picks. You can even turn those picks into more future picks. It sounds crazy, but you can.
Mm-hmm.
The sky's the limit for the Blues in time.
Yes.
But right now, expect the Blues to be where they're at. And if you're Armstrong, also work free agency. Work with the free agency. Try to get another good piece or 2. Get some good veteran presence because right now, you got a lot of young guys. Not a lot of notable names. Let me tell you something. Not having Tarasenko on the Blues anymore was weird. Not having O'Reilly anymore was weird.
Yeah.
Not having Barbashev on anymore.
The O'Reilly one was the one that really kind of struck me as odd. I mean, if I had to pick one trade that struck me as odd, I think I would go with the O'Reilly trade.
The O'Reilly trade needed to happen, though. And we knew it, and most of us felt that it was going to happen soon. And it wasn't because of poor performance. It wasn't because of any attitude issues. It was because of his contract. See, O'Reilly still is going to, unless he strikes an extension with the Maple Leafs, he's still going to be a free agent after this season. And then there comes the rumors that the Blues are going to re-sign him from free agency and bring him back, which
so he's pretty much a rent-a-player with Toronto.
Yes, but I still don't see him coming back to the Blues just next season. If anything, he'll come back maybe near the end of his career or something, if anything, but I don't see him just going to the Maple Leafs for a few months. Do I, or at the very least, see him go to the Maple Leafs for a few months, leave, and then go back to the team that traded him? If so, that's also highway robbery on the part of the Blues because not only do they have 3 first-round picks, but they got the guy that they traded away right back on the team.
Yeah, you don't see that in other sports like the way you do in baseball.
Right.
I mean, in baseball, you trade a guy to a contender. He's a rent-a-player for a few months, and he'll test free agency and then go somewhere else. But you don't see that in the other major sports.
Well, no. I can't even and folks, if you can think of one, be sure to let us know of an instance where a guy literally just got traded away, stayed with the team a few months, and then went back to the team that originally traded him. I would love to hear some interesting ones on that. But with that,
give you one right off the bat.
All right, give me one right off the bat.
All right, I don't know if you remember Sidney Ponzone. He was a Cardinal for a brief period, but he was with the Orioles.
I remember when he was with the Orioles.
He got traded to the Giants, and he was a rent-a-player with the Giants, and then signed back with the Orioles.
Interesting. Yeah, I did not know that.
He's also Sir Sid. The Queen of the Netherlands knighted him.
Huh. Really?
Yep.
See, folks, this is the pros of having a bona fide sports historian on the show. I would have never guessed in a million years that even happened.
Yeah, Queen Beatrix knighted him.
That's awesome. So we're going to move on now, and as we are getting closer to the hour mark, right now we're at 50 minutes here on Roundabout Sports, and I'm only putting the timestamps in for those that are that are tuning in, whether it be on Spotify, Anchor, or here live. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is from March 1st. I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp alongside Parker, the sports historian, the Burt Sugar of Missouri, as he likes to call himself. And, thank you all so much who have tuned in. We're going to go right now to the XFL. Now, every week, the good Dr. JM himself will publish on interstate70sports.media his own power rankings.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is nothing like the XFL. This is which version of XFL? Is this the third version or
this is the third? This is
the original.
Yes, this is 3.0, but it incorporates a lot of 2.0 because 2.0 didn't even last half a season, unfortunately. Well, it lasted about half a season, didn't last a full season.
Right.
But
I think 1.0 lasted the one season.
One season. Right. So first, we're going to go, I guess, up the list. We'll start with number 8, and I'm going to read off not only his ranking, but I'm going to read the description he gave for them. And I want to thank the good doctor. And folks, be sure to tune into all the amazing coverage. It's not just the XFL he covers. He covers professional wrestling. He's going to be covering exclusive St. Louis City SC content for I-70 Sports, as well as many other teams. But we're going to start right now with at number 8, the lowest on our list, the Orlando Guardians.
Okay.
Now, listen, when your team makes headlines for the quarterback telling teammates to shut the F up, it's not a good thing.
No.
Now, at minus 36 on the season, Orlando's just a mess. The team is the laughingstock of the XFL at the moment, and it does not appear that will be changing anytime soon. And I wholeheartedly agree with that take. I mean, every time I see the Guardians play, both times, it's just a joke. I mean, Paxton Lynch, they had high hopes on him for Orlando, and he's already gotten benched. So I think that tells you all you need to know about that. So right there, we got Orlando at the bottom. Now, number 7, this is an interesting one because last week he had them in the top 4 in the upper half of the league, but we got the Las Vegas Vipers. Now, Las Vegas has the biggest drop in the rankings this week. The offense was putrid. At minus 14, the Vipers need to get the offense moving. If Las Vegas can get the offense in sync, I think the defense is good enough to win some games, but there are questions on the offensive side of the ball that the Vipers need to answer before they can win some games. It's interesting because in the XFL, not in the NFL, in the XFL, one thing that you have a lot of question marks about is the offense. There's been a lot of good defense, but I tell you, the offenses have been questionable all across the board, and we'll get into some of them soon, especially with the Battlehawks. I think it's also just because of the short time span of training camp and the draft and getting the teams together. So we'll see how that affects everything. So with that, we are going to move on to the number 6 team. Now, this one, man. Speaking about the Battlehawks, here's a team that just lost wholeheartedly to the Battlehawks in week 2, and that's the Seattle Sea Dragons. Once again, another 0-2 team. Now, on paper, Seattle appeared to be one of the top teams, but an 0-2 start has some rethink in that assessment. Seattle cannot close out games, and that's their biggest issue. The turnovers continue to plague the team, and at times Ben DiNucci looks like the best quarterback in the league, and at times he cannot hang on to the football.
Now,
Now,
what do
if they
these
can
teams
start,
play their games? I mean, do they
yeah.
play? Do they play their games in the stadiums that the NFL teams normally use?
No. Now, some like the Vipers, for example, use an independent baseball league stadium, which looked more like a freaking high school stadium. Las Vegas, to me, has the worst stadium. Then you got ones like the Battlehawks, who once they finally do host their first home game, it will be at the Dome, at America Center.
Okay.
And of
Is
course,
that what they're calling it this week?
well, I mean, that's what they've been calling it for years. The Dome at America Center since the Rams left. Ever since the Edward Jones license expired, or at least sponsorship expired, and then the Sea Dragons host at the same stadium that the Seahawks play,
Right.
up in Seattle. So for a lot of teams, yes. Other teams, not so much. And for Vegas, I understand, because how are you going to fit? You really going to think you're going to get 70,000 plus fans into the stadium where the Raiders play to watch an 0-2 Vipers team? No. You got to be realistic with this. You got to be realistic with the expectations, and you don't want to jump the gun. The Rock and Dane Garcia, they're all being very cautious about how to approach this league, especially post-pandemic, So,
So you still got the WWE connection with this league.
Right. Thankfully, not as much as you did in the first one.
No.
Yeah.
Now, what are they going to call the championship game? Like the first one, I don't know if you remember, they called it was the really big game at the end.
Right.
That's what they called it. It was called the really big game at the end. So I'm wondering if they're going to come up with some gimmicky name.
Yeah, we'll see what they call it this time around. So to continue with the Good Doctor's Power Rankings here, he's got the Arlington Renegades at number 5. Now, Arlington dropped 3 spots this week. They did not impress
is that
me
Arlington,
much.
Texas, or Arlington, Virginia?
Arlington, Texas.
Okay.
The hub basically of this is in Texas. And yeah, so Arlington, they said the Good Doctor said they did not impress him much against Houston, the top team. Arlington's pass. Well, I mean, and it's not it's not going to be the top team rankings as much as it's just the top team in the league as well.
Oh, okay.
Houston's been unstoppable heading into week 3, but like I said, we'll get into that soon. The Renegades is sitting at -7 on the season. They've given up 5 sacks in the loss against Houston. But on the plus side, Arlington's defense was successful in forcing some turnovers. Now, if the defense can continue to play strong, expect Arlington to rise.
All right.
Now we get to our top half. Number 4, San Antonio Brahmas. The Brahmas got win number 1 of the year over the lowly Guardians. Once again, there's our lovely Guardians, but looked pretty solid in the victory. Jack Cohn is picked to be the player of the year for the league, tossed 3 touchdowns in the win. They put up the most points of any team in the week, while San Antonio is plus 15 on the season. But he is putting the Battlehawks over them because they have a win over San Antonio. Now, this is an interesting argument. You look at the St. Louis Battlehawks at number 3. They're only plus 5 on the season as far as point differential, but they're 2-0. AJ McCarron. So, all right, I'll go through.
They have the biggest name at quarterback right now.
Well, I'm going to go through his take, and then we'll go through ours, because this is where I really find it intriguing. So the Battlehawks, another close win over an opponent, will pay dividends as the season wears on. AJ McCarron continues to be lights out in the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
This will be a huge test for St. Louis, though. They'll be playing its 3rd road game in a row against the DC Defenders. Now, if they can get past the defenders in a tough defense, the Dome will be rocking in week 4 for the team's home opener. One way or another, in my opinion, the Dome's going to rock. It don't matter whether they win by 40 or lose by 40 or win by 2 or lose by 2. Week 4 is going to be the biggest game in a long time. They are hyped as hell about this. Now, do I think – I mean, it's already, of course, guaranteed they're going to go in the home opener with a winning record. But DC is tough. And the connection of Austin Proehl and A.J. McCarron is one of the best in the whole league.
That's right. Austin Proehl is Ricky Proehl's son.
Yep. And it's a good thing the good doctor's not on the show because since the good doctor does not like – well, so last week we had the good doctor on.
Right.
And he talks about – he was joking about how Cacaw can get on his last nerves jokingly.
Okay, I get it now.
And so my dad responded by asking him, well, what about cock-a-doodle-doo? And Babs and I joked with him about that.
Okay, I get it now.
I digress. Bottom line, though, the offensive line is the biggest issue of the Battlehawks. There is no ifs, ands, buts, doubts, anything about it. Second guessing, anything. Offensive line is putrid in any way, shape, or form. A quarterback should have about 5 or 6 seconds in the pocket. You know, for crying out loud, A.J. McCarron snaps the damn ball and the defense is already right up there to smother him. Give the man a chance to succeed.
I mean, he takes the snap. He doesn't snap the ball. He takes the snap.
Or, well, when he takes the snap. Either way, when the ball gets snapped, he has no time to make the throw. And yet somehow in the last 2 minutes, he'll find a way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if the offensive line pulls their head out of their ass and does it, but somehow during the last 2 minutes of the game, it's like the best offense to watch. It's just the other 58 minutes of the season or of the game. It's agonizing.
Right. I mean,
Parker, what do you think? Parker, I want your thoughts. What do you think about the XFL so far this season with the Battlehawks?
I've been impressed. They've shown a lot of resilience, but I'd like to see if they can play 58 minutes of a game the way they play. I mean, I wish they could play that same kind of game for 60 minutes instead of 2.
Right.
They look like the worst team in football for 58 minutes, and then the last 2 they're world beaters.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you this right now.
That's going to wear on fans after a while.
Well, it's going to wear on fans, and it's also just wearing on the team because, look, at some point you're facing DC this week. Eventually you're going to face Houston. You can't be facing these top teams with struggles like that.
Right.
Where you are outplayed 58 minutes of the game and then all of a sudden decide to kick it into high gear. You're not going to win you've won twice like that, but you can't keep winning like that.
Right. And
eventually it's going to run out
in a season. How many games
What's
are there?
That? 10.
How many
There's
games
10 regular season.
I was just okay.
So
how many teams? There are 8 teams.
Yes.
I'm guessing 2 divisions, 4 teams each.
Right.
And how many teams make the playoffs?
Let me see. Let me double check on that. So I believe, if I remember correctly, there is 4 playoff teams. Okay, top 2 in each division.
So it's pretty cut and dried.
Yeah.
And then
because the XFL championship is the winner of the Northern champ division and the Southern champ. Because the semifinal games are the top 2 in each division.
Right.
And then go from there.
So somebody could catch Houston napping in the playoffs.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing. So now, we'll see. Go ahead.
Now I was going to say, if this season turns out to be a real success on the gridiron, now not necessarily meaning at the box office, I mean on the gridiron, if a lot of these guys show some real ability, are NFL scouts going to be sniffing around?
Well, yeah, because in a way, this is almost a developmental because there is a lot of former NFL players in this league.
AJ
I
McCarron is
mean,
one of them.
AJ McCarron, Brian Hill, Ben DiNucci, Josh Gordon. Oh gosh, darn it! There was the one linebacker, and he's off the top of he's on the tip of my tongue, and he had gosh, hang on, I know.
That was Austin Prohl.
Vic Beasley, that's who it was. I was like, I
Yeah.
knew the name sounded familiar. Vic Beasley. Vic Beasley is a perfect example. There's a lot of former guys who are getting second chances in the XFL, and that's one reason they're going there.
So they can audition for the NFL.
Either a comeback in the NFL or, AJ McCarron has the best story of it all. AJ McCarron said he could have gone back to the NFL and been a backup on any team. He could have there's probably a couple teams he could have been a starter for. But he wanted to be in the XFL for his kids so he could create memories that they could see. Judging by that, the season.
Wow. I didn't know they had
exactly. Yeah, and judging by how the season's gone for them, those are some interesting memories.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing how it works, how that works out. So it's great hearing those types of stories. I love the St. Louis Ties. I love having Austin Prohl on the team. I was sick of them on the broadcast last week calling him a Seattle legend, or calling his dad, Ricky Prohl, I'm sorry, a Seattle legend. No. Ricky Prohl is famous for being in St. Louis. Austin Prohl is famous for, being the son of Ricky Prohl and for, having he had a decent XFL career in the first go-around, or I guess technically second go-around with Seattle, but he shined. He's the number one guy for St. Louis with the Battlehawks. And I love it. You see his dad and him embrace. You see, and he's a reliable target for AJ McCarron.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me when it comes to the XFL is developing trust, because these are a bunch of guys that are new to each other.
But so far, McCarron and Prohl seem to trust each other.
Right, and they've come from different journeys. Everybody's journey is different. The only person I wouldn't trust is the kicker, who's ungodly struggled this year.
Not everybody can be Harrison Butker.
Well, I mean, I prefer closer that way than, somebody else. I'm trying to think of a kicker that was known for missing practically every kick. Okay, here, I got one. I know a perfect one, and you will appreciate this reference. I would rather have somebody closer to Harrison Butker than somebody closer to Neil O'Donoghue.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
So there you go. There's my good old football Cardinals reference for the evening.
I think he was a Chief for a bit, too.
Oh, that's funny. So we're going to continue now with the rankings. We just have two teams left. Number 2 is the DC Defenders, who are facing the Battlehawks this week at home. The good doctor says DC's number 2 because of the defense. They're plus 16 on the season, which is second in the league.
Damn.
They've surrendered the least amount of points, but there is a cause for concern in his mind. Jordan Ta'amu continues to struggle. That's right, folks. This week, it'll be the battle between the Battlehawks and their former quarterback, the throwing Samoan himself, Jordan Ta'amu. But he's being bailed out by a strong run game. It's a pivotal matchup this week against the Battlehawks. I think fans were so upset. First off, they were happy when he went to the Chiefs, but they were so upset when he went to basically not the Battlehawks. It could have been any team in the XFL. As long as it wasn't the Battlehawks, they would have been upset because he gave them so much excitement. Him and Matt Jones and Lindaney in Washington. The XFL 2020 Battlehawks were just such a fun team to watch. They pulled out all the stops. They did all these crazy plays. It was such a fun time. And we're 2 weeks away from their home opener. Well, now Tom, once again, is on an undefeated team heading into week 3 against St. Louis. We'll see how that plays out on next week's episode. But once again, we'll see where it lies. But right now, DC's defense is just unbelievable, and you love to see it. So, with that, we get to our final pick. Parker, you know just well as I do who it's going to be. And that's right. At number 1, it's arguably the best team in the league, which is the Houston Roughnecks.
Love the name.
It's a good name. Now, the good Dr. JM says Houston remains at the top of the league. They used a monster second half against Arlington to move to 2-0 the young season. As of week 2, heading into week 3, they are plus 30 on the season. They recorded 5 sacks in their win over Arlington. Turnovers may be an issue, but for now, the team's able to get past mistakes. And that's another huge difference maker is that, any team can make mistakes, but to be able to bounce back from them quickly and efficiently,
right,
that's what separates a lot. And that's what it seems like Houston's able to do.
So this is week 3. And
we are heading into week 3. Yes,
right.
The week right after this will be the week 3 season of the XFL. I'm ready.
And I think I've seen the games. I think FS1 has had some, and I'm not sure if Big Fox had any games or not, but I know FS1. I know they're on
FS1 did. ABC's had them. FXX, which why I don't know. Because, and this is one complaint I do have about the XFL. Have a freaking pregame show. I don't need to watch Fast and Furious 17 and then it goes straight to the kickoff and then back to Fast and Furious 18 or something after the game. Have better pregame coverage because if you're wanting to really draw fans in, you got to give them something besides the on-field product. Other than that, I've enjoyed the XFL so far this year. It's a nice alternative. I don't want them going direct head-to-head with the NFL. I enjoy the XFL more than the USFL.
I actually enjoyed the first USFL, believe it or not.
I mean, I enjoyed it, but more than I enjoyed the USFL more than I enjoyed the AAF. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that was a dud. I don't know why.
That was a dud. But see, there's all these secondary leagues, and I think that's why the XFL has taken this approach to being a secondary league, where
they know they're a secondary league, and that's good enough for them.
Right, but they want to be the best alternative.
Right.
Okay, this is the thing. They're not going into it saying by next year or 3 years from now, we're going to be bigger than the NFL. They know that. But they want to say, look, exactly. You're at, like you said, you look where they're at and compared to all these other leagues. They want to be like, look, if you want to watch an alternative option, we're the best. And as of now, I feel they are. The XFL's fun.
They actually play in their own cities. I mean, they don't play in one city like the USFL does.
Right. And I also enjoy the fact that, and it cracks me up, though, the 4th and 15 alternative to an onside kick is just great. Because nobody ever makes these onside kicks, so it's just great seeing the 4th and 15 option. And what people don't realize is now, I forget which team proposed it. I think it was the Eagles, proposed a 4th and 15 option to the NFL. Just on the just as the same as the XFL does. The influence is there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to week 3. I don't have a.
I'd love to see the reaction to the Battlehawks at home.
Yeah, week 4 is going to be absolutely ecstatic and electric, and I do agree with JM that if the Battlehawks win in week 3, it's going to be even more crazy at home.
Yes,
I remember the home opener last year. St. Louis was packed, and it was blue and gray everywhere.
Wow.
Thousands among thousands. We had the highest attendance average had COVID not hit, we were going to open the Upper Bowl at the Dome. And when you were going to, because we were going to play Los Angeles Vipers, and they were going to open that Upper Bowl. We were planning in St. Louis here, we were all going to have about 60 plus thousand fans.
Right.
Now they've opened some of the Upper Bowl seating sections already because the demand for tickets in St. Louis is so high. I don't think people outside of St. Louis realize how popular it is here. And now we're a fourth, Parker, and you know, you love this, I'm sure, just as much as I do. We're a fourth pro sports city again.
Yep.
Because we got the MLB, we got.
Oh, no, you're right. 4.
Yeah. Well, because we got, and of course, a lot of great local teams as well. You got the St. Louis Ambush, you got the Gateway Grizzlies, you know, there, and of course, well, I missed the day.
You've even got MU a couple of hours down the road.
Yeah, you got the Billikens, you know, you got, and don't get me started on all the professionals, wrestling organizations, but you got the Cardinals, the Blues, the St. Louis City SC, and then you got the Battlehawks.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part is, none of them had to share a stadium. What's the biggest issue in this city for the past 50 years when it comes to sports teams with stadiums? Where are they going to put them? Are they going to share them? Nope. Everybody gets their own stadium. You get a stadium, you get a stadium, and you get a stadium.
Right. Now, what about, is there any chance that St. Louis could ever become a 5 pro sports city?
I mean, I could, yes, I could see it, because I could imagine and envision an NBA team coming back to the city. But I think right now, Kansas City is looking more likely for a destination of an expansion team.
Mm-hmm. They've got that Sprint Center in Kansas City that nobody uses.
Exactly. But I know they've been talking about expansion in the NBA, and I think one of the cities that's a top priority would be Kansas City. Because this is the thing. Kansas City is only, if you include Sporting KC, which is technically in the Kansas side, Kansas City area is just a 3-sport city. You got the Royals,
the Chiefs,
you got the Chiefs, and then Sporting KC.
Right.
They don't have a hockey team, and they don't have a basketball team.
They had a hockey team, an NHL team at one point.
Right.
They are now the New Jersey Devils.
Right. Well, what's interesting is, you know, which is crazy to think about. You know, I'm going to give you, before we start wrapping it up, Parker, I want to give you just one trivia question. And if you get this, I'll have to think of something to give you credit for or something, because Christopher Miles, I don't know if he's still tuning in this evening, but he knows the answer to this. But I want to see if you do. As of 2023, now, what is the most recent pro sports team to cease operations? Not move, not become an expansion or anything, but to cease operations and have never existed again.
Ooh, that is a good one. As of
as of now. So while you look that up, I'm gonna put on their logo, like for when it's ready.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Let's see. No, there ain't no looking it up though. You gotta put your mind to the test.
Mm-hmm. Most pro sport to cease operations, huh?
Yep. I'll give you just a little bit more time to guess, and then I'll have to pull up the logo. Don't want too much lull time.
Well, no, I can't say it's the Seattle Supersonics, because they
they moved. It's not the Expos either, or the Nordiques, or not even the Cleveland Browns, believe it or not.
No, because the Cleveland Browns technically moved.
Right. They moved. Baltimore became the expansion team because they kept the players, but the Browns kept the history, or the city of Cleveland did. That's
And then the
still weird to
colors
me.
and yeah,
All
no.
that lovely stuff. It's weird how that works.
But
And
the
while Parker looks that up, or hopefully doesn't look it up, or just puts his brain to the test, folks, I just want to say be sure to find us at Roundabout Sports on Facebook. Find us at Interstate 70 Sports Media on Twitter and on Facebook. You can find myself on Facebook and Twitter. Also, to send out our best wishes to Hollywood James Knox and our dear Babs. And a happy early birthday to my dad. His birthday's in a couple days on March 3rd. So definitely.
how is Hollywood doing?
Hollywood's as best as he can. God love him. We pray for him every day.
Yeah, I know
Wishing
he
him
was.
a
I know he
speedy
said he was going
recovery.
through some. He was going through some stuff, but
Yeah, that's just what we can get. All right, Parker. I gotta put it on there, buddy.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
The
The
Cleveland Barons.
California Golden Seals. They were part of the first expansion after the original 6 in the NHL.
Yeah. And then they became the Cleveland Barons, and then the Barons became no more.
Right. 1976, I believe it was.
Yep. And the Barons, no, yep, and they didn't become anybody else. They just vamoosed.
Well,
so it's interesting.
I was going to say the Spirit. You might not have remembered, and they might have been a bit before your time. The Spirits of St. Louis.
I don't remember them, but I know about them.
But their owners are still making money off the NBA TV deal.
Oh, that's funny.
Even though, they were promised a share of revenues during the ABA-NBA merger, but then their team disbanded.
Oh, jeez. Oh, it's always something.
So the two guys that owned the Spirits of St. Louis are still making money off the NBA.
I mean, look, if it works, it works.
But yeah, they disbanded in like 1975.
Oof. And they weren't very good, that's for sure.
No, they had a guy named Marvin Barnes who played for Providence in college, and he was a baller. He was good, but he was kind of a head case.
Yeah.
And they were in Louisville, Kentucky for a game with the Kentucky Colonels. This is the old ABA. And he saw the schedule. He said, leave. He said, leave Louisville 7:50 a.m., arrive St. Louis 7:30 a.m., because Louisville and St. Louis were in two different time zones. And he thought he was going to be getting into some sort of time machine and going back in time.
Oh, jeez. All right, folks. Well, as we wrap up, Parker, any final thoughts? It's been great having you on this evening.
That's been great being on. I'm looking forward to doing more guest spots, and I want to give you guys a program reminder. The show. This is going to be a new baseball show with myself and Robert Marcello from the Boston area in Massachusetts. Is going to be debuting this Saturday at 1:00 Central. That's 2 Eastern for those of you in the Northeast in New England. But
that's March 4th, everybody. So, yeah.
That's the show where we talk about the show.
There you go. Well, not a better title for a show than the show. Okay, well, Parker, it's been such a pleasure having you on. Folks, before we close out this evening, as always, I want to put up the National Association of Mental Illness on here. You can call the NAMI hotline at 1-800-950-NAMI. For those listening, that is 1-800-950-NAMI.
That's November Alpha Mike India for those of you that were in the military.
Yep, there you go. The National Alliance, it is the Alliance. National Alliance on Mental Illness is a United States-based nonprofit organization. It is one of the largest, it's actually the nation's largest grassroots mental health advocacy campaign group out there. Very wonderful organization. And also, as always on the show, we post it, but for those that listen on a non-video streaming service, we talk about the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. For that, you dial 988. It's open 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand that you're never alone in the world out there. There's always somebody out there who loves you, is willing to be they're just a phone call away. All you gotta do is reach out, and to others, you can be that listening ear, that person that can be there for somebody else in dire need. It just takes one person to help. So we just gotta be there for each other. And once again, I want to thank Parker so much for being on. Happy early birthday to my dad. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Karp. Tune in next week, and remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in.